The Ford Motor Company is more than just a car manufacturer. It's an institution, a cornerstone of American industry. It's a symbol of American ingenuity, a testament to the power of innovation, and the embodiment of the promise of the American dream, where hard work and determination can lead to prosperity and success. For generations, Ford has been woven into the fabric of American life. Henry Ford didn't just invent a car, he envisioned a future where personal transportation was accessible to all. He revolutionized manufacturing with the moving assembly line, a groundbreaking innovation that transformed industries worldwide. This wasn't just about making cars faster, it was about reimagining how things were made. This new method of production dramatically reduced costs, making cars affordable for everyday Americans, not just the wealthy elite. The Model T became more than just a vehicle, it became an instrument of freedom, a symbol of progress. It connected communities, shrinking distances, and empowering families to explore new horizons and experience the open road. Ford's $5 workday in 1914 more than doubled wages for his workers, a move that was revolutionary for its time. This bold decision not only improved the lives of his employees, but also allowed workers to buy the cars they built, fueling the rise of the American middle class and creating a consumer culture. Ford factories became more than just places of work. They became community hubs, centers of social and economic activity. Their fortunes were inextricably tied to the nation's prosperity, rising and falling with the economic tides. Decades later, Ford remained a powerful symbol in American politics, a touchstone for economic policy and national identity. Politicians frequently visited Ford plants, promising to protect its jobs and legacy, recognizing its importance to the American workforce. As globalization threatened traditional manufacturing, shifting production overseas and challenging American dominance, Ford stood as a monument to American industrial strength, a reminder of a time when the nation led the world in manufacturing innovation. The Trump administration's America First agenda, with its focus on bringing jobs back to the United States, put Ford, a company synonymous with American manufacturing, at the center of a new economic experiment, a test of whether old industries could be revived. The stage was set, the policies were in place, the promises were made. Could policy really restore the glory days of American manufacturing, or was this a nostalgic dream in a rapidly changing global economy? Donald Trump's 2016 election marked a sharp break from decades of free trade consensus in Washington. The new administration argued that free trade had hollowed out America's industrial base, costing millions of jobs. Economic nationalism took center stage, with tariffs as the primary weapon. Tariffs, taxes on imports, were meant to make foreign goods pricier, encouraging domestic production and job growth. The administration framed tariffs as essential for national security and fairness, promising to put American workers first. But this approach clashed with the global supply chains American companies had built over decades. Suddenly, businesses faced new costs and uncertainty, threatening the very model that had kept prices low and profits high. The collision between political ideology and economic reality was about to begin. In March 2018, the Trump administration, under the banner of America First, fired the first shots in a new trade war, a move that would send ripples throughout the global economy and directly impact American industries. This marked a significant shift in international trade policy, departing from decades of established norms. The opening salvo came in the form of sweeping tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, key materials for countless industries worldwide. These tariffs were designed to reshape the landscape of international trade. A hefty 25% tax was levied on steel imports, while a 10% tax was imposed on aluminum, significantly increasing the cost of these essential materials. These tariffs hit imports from nearly every country, including some of the United States' closest allies, creating tension and uncertainty in international relations. The move sparked immediate backlash from affected nations. The stated goal of these tariffs was to protect American metal producers, bolstering domestic industries under the guise of national security. The argument was that a strong domestic metal industry was vital for the country's defense and economic stability. For Ford, one of America's largest automakers, this sudden policy shift represented an immediate and significant threat, because cars rely heavily on both steel and aluminum for everything from their frames to their engines, and the intricate global supply chains that support automotive manufacturing simply can't be reconfigured or changed overnight to adapt to these new tariffs. What's more, Even US-sourced metals became more expensive in the wake of the tariffs, as domestic producers, facing less foreign competition, quickly seized the opportunity to raise their prices, further squeezing manufacturers. As a result, Ford faced a sudden and substantial spike in its production costs, impacting the bottom line for every single vehicle built in America. This put immense pressure on the company's financial performance. The administration insisted that companies could simply buy American and avoid the tariffs. But the reality is that modern supply chains are incredibly complex and deeply integrated, with contracts often locked in years in advance, making rapid shifts in sourcing virtually impossible. The tariffs, therefore, created a significant new financial burden for American manufacturers, ultimately undermining the very goal of making American manufacturing more competitive on the global stage. Ford, along with other automakers and manufacturers across the country, were forced to confront a harsh new economic reality. The cost of doing business in America, particularly in manufacturing, had just gone up, dramatically and unexpectedly. The steel and aluminum tariffs were just the beginning, a shot across the bow in a much larger trade conflict. These initial tariffs sent ripples throughout the manufacturing world, but what followed had a much more direct and profound impact on companies like Ford. Soon, tariffs hit a wide range of Chinese imports, escalating the trade tensions and creating a complex web of economic challenges for businesses operating on a global scale. The implications were far-reaching, affecting not just raw materials but also finished goods and components, including countless automotive parts. These weren't just major components, they were the nuts, bolts, and electronic chips that held vehicles together. The sheer volume of affected parts was staggering. Ford's global supply chain, built for efficiency and optimized over decades, was suddenly a liability. The intricate network of suppliers and manufacturers, once a source of competitive advantage, now became a vulnerable point, exposed to the whims of international trade policy. Even small, overlooked parts became more expensive, adding up to significant cost increases across the board. And the costs multiplied across millions of vehicles. Each car required thousands of parts, and even a small tariff on each part could translate into millions of dollars in additional expenses. Ford faced tough choices. A real dilemma, with no easy answers. Absorb the costs and shrink profits, potentially impacting shareholder value and future investments. Raise prices and risk losing customers to competitors who might be willing to absorb the tariff costs or cut costs elsewhere, often meaning layoffs or canceled projects, impacting communities and hindering innovation. The idea of a purely American-made car was a myth, a nostalgic vision that clashed with the realities of modern manufacturing. Even US-assembled vehicles relied on global suppliers for critical components and materials. The globalized nature of the automotive industry made it particularly vulnerable to trade disputes. Tariffs meant to punish foreign competitors, intended to level the playing field, were now punishing Ford for participating in the global economy, a system it had helped to build and refine. The company's efficiency, its ability to source parts globally and optimize its supply chain, was being penalized, not rewarded. This created a perverse incentive, discouraging companies from pursuing efficient and cost-effective manufacturing practices. Ford was forced to rethink its entire business model, reassessing its supply chain, manufacturing processes, and pricing strategies. The very system that made Ford competitive, allowing it to produce affordable and reliable vehicles, was now under attack. The impact was immediate, forcing the company to make quick decisions in a rapidly changing environment, and the options were all painful, each carrying its own set of risks and consequences. The promise of revitalized American manufacturing, a key justification for the tariffs, was already in doubt, as companies like Ford struggled to navigate the complex and unpredictable trade landscape. The financial impact was swift and staggering. Ford's CEO announced that steel and aluminum tariffs alone would cost the company $1 billion in profits over 2 years. This wasn't a hypothetical loss, it was real money, gone from Ford's bottom line. That $1 billion could have funded electric vehicle research, factory upgrades, or new jobs. Instead, it was diverted to pay what amounted to a new tax on manufacturing. The tariffs, meant to help American industry, were making Ford less competitive and forcing tough decisions. Cost-cutting became inevitable, with layoffs and canceled investments on the table. The policy designed as a lifeline was acting as an anchor. Ford's ability to invest in its future and in American workers was being choked off. The irony was painful, the cure was hurting the patient. Ford's pain rippled through its vast network of suppliers and workers. As Ford squeezed suppliers for lower prices, many small businesses faced impossible choices: absorb losses, lay off workers, or delay investments. The supply chain weakened, threatening thousands of jobs. Ford's billion-dollar hit accelerated a massive restructuring, leading to thousands of job cuts, including many in North America. The tariffs meant to create jobs were contributing to layoffs. Consumers weren't spared either. Vehicle prices crept up, adding a hidden tax to American families. Studies estimated tariffs could add thousands to the price of a new car. The costs of trade policy were landing on ordinary people. The intended beneficiaries, workers and consumers, were feeling the squeeze. The ripple effects were everywhere, from factory floors to family budgets. The reality was far from the promise. Ford wasn't alone. Businesses across America sounded the alarm. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and major automakers like GM and Fiat Chrysler warned that tariffs were attacks on American companies and consumers. Retaliation from other countries made it harder to sell U.S.-made goods abroad, compounding the pain. Allies hit with tariffs responded in kind, targeting iconic American products. The result, a tit-for-tat trade war, creating uncertainty and disruption for businesses everywhere. The global economy's interconnectedness became painfully clear. Decades of building global supply chains were suddenly at risk. Business leaders argued that broad tariffs were a blunt instrument, causing more harm than good. The policy reversal created instability, making long-term planning nearly impossible. The backlash was widespread and growing. Ford's leadership had to act fast. Publicly, they opposed the tariffs, warning of job losses and reduced investment. Internally, Ford accelerated a sweeping restructuring, streamlining operations, cutting jobs, and exiting unprofitable markets. The tariffs forced Ford to rethink where and how it invested, making U.S. projects less attractive. Plans for new vehicles like the Focus Active were scrapped because tariffs made them unprofitable. The United Auto Workers Union, initially hopeful, soon saw the downside: rising costs, canceled projects, and layoffs. The relationship between trade policy and worker prosperity proved far more complicated than slogans suggested. Ford's response was a mix of adaptation and protest. The company's future, and its workers, was now tied to unpredictable policy shifts. The promise of more American jobs was slipping away. Ford's struggle became a cautionary tale for the entire industry. Ford's experience with tariffs reveals the complexity of global trade today. Modern supply chains can't be unwound overnight. A car is a global product, not just American or Chinese. Tariffs intended to help ended up hurting, taxing the very system that made U.S. companies competitive. The real cost of tariffs falls on companies and consumers, not foreign governments. Ford's billion-dollar loss meant less investment in innovation and jobs. Trade wars are rarely won. They come at a steep price for everyone. Broad tariffs proved to be a blunt tool, sparking retaliation and instability. A smarter approach would target specific issues and work with allies. Ford's story is a lesson in resilience, and a warning about the risks of economic nationalism in a connected world. The future of American manufacturing depends on smart, strategic engagement with the global economy, not building walls.